Good morning. Welcome to Ashir on Torah Time. We are up to Perek Zayin, Yeshayahu, and it begins Vayhi bimei Achaz ben Yosam ben Uziyahu melech Yehuda. So it's in the days of Achaz. Achaz is the son of Yosam, son of Uziyahu.
Yeshayahu was a Nubian, right?
Correct. One of the kings that was under Yeshayahu's prophetic reign. Melech Yehuda, Allah Ritzin Melech Aram, Upekach ben Remalyahu Melech Yisrael, Yerushalayim. So there was an allegiance created between the king of Assyria, his name was Ritzin, and Pekach ben Remalyahu was the king of the Malchi Yisrael, and they made a pact to go up against Yerushalayim, and there was who is the king of the last powerful king of the Seres HaShvatim, and they came up to make battle against Yerushalayim, but they could not conquer it. Vayugad leveis David leimod. So it was told to the house of David, which is the Malchi Yehuda, which is Achaz, Nocha Aram al Ephraim, that Aram ganged up together with Ephraim. They made an alliance with Ephraim. The reason why the Malchi Yisrael are called Ephraim is because Yerav ben Nevat came from Shevet Ephraim. Vayona levavoy ulevav amoy kenoya atze yoar mipnei ruach. And his heart and his people's heart trembled like trees in the forest from the wind. That's how they were terrified that they would be decimated, because not only was Malchi Yisrael much greater, but together they were together with Pekach, with Ritzin, and it was just previously they managed to beat back the army, like killed up 180,000 soldiers, so they were terrified.
Why do they want to fight with Yerushalayim first?
They wanted to take over. They wanted to fly. Listen to the words. Vayomer Hashem el Yeshayahu, Tzeino likras Achaz. Go to Achaz, the king of Yehuda, Ata, u'sha'ar Yashuv banecha, and your son Sha'ar Yashuv. That's what the name in Shlomo Freifeld's yeshiva is called Sha'ar Yashuv. Sha'ar Yashuv. It means the last of the remnants. Sha'ar Yashuv, the remaining remnants. So it's just a very prophetic name. Sha'ar Yashuv, the last of the remnants. He made a yeshiva based on this pasuk from Yeshaya. So the chayre means that Yeshayahu, your son. Yeshayahu had a son that will be named Sha'ar Yashuv. That means who is the son of Yeshayahu? It's Sha'ar Yashuv. It's the remnant which will be left behind. That means there's always going to be a remnant that's going to return. Sha'ar Yashuv, the remnants that will return. So a remnant will return. So that was it means the whole ultimate message of Yeshayahu through all of his bitter prophecies that he gave the Jewish people. The message was, like we learned in last Perek, that there's going to remain a matzeva, that from there he's going to give root again. It's always the message Sha'ar Yashuv. There will be a remnant that will return. El Ketzei Ta'alas Abrecha. So go to the end of the channel of the upper pool, Abrecha Al Yoino, El Mesilas Sedei Choyves, to the field where the launders do laundry. And we spoke about it, that even in today where they have there in the Shiloach, they have they show actually where that pool is, where this stream is, and where is that pool. Amarta Elav, and you should tell him, Hishomer v'hashket, take care and be calm. Al tiro, don't be afraid. Ulevavcha yerach b'shnei zanvoy sa'udem u'ashenim eila. Don't be afraid of these two smoldering pieces of wood. Zanvoy sa'udem u'ashenim means that after you have a fire and you're left with a little sliver of wood or a piece of wood that it doesn't have any fire, but it's still smoking. So don't be afraid of these two smoking, almost extinguished pieces of coal. Who they are smoking in fury. That means all they're doing is just making noise. They're just making smoke, but there's nothing really going on. There's nothing to be afraid of. Yan Because they plotted against you, they ganged up and they said, let's rise up against Yehuda and let's like flatten it out, like make it into a biko. Let's take it back under our control, and we're gonna put on it a king as Ben Toval. Now, who Ben Toval is? Either it means Ben Toiv, it means a son that's going to be good for us, because we don't know of any son that was called Toval. But it means that they're going to make like a puppet king over there. Koi Amar Hashem Elikim Lo Yisakum V'Lo Yisiyah. So God says you don't have to worry. It's not happening. It won't stand. It won't be. They're out of touch with reality. Ki Rosh Adam Damesek. The Rosh Damesek Ritzin. Because the head of Adam, the head of Damesek, Ki Rosh Adam Damesek V'Rosh Damesek Ritzin, which means this powerful head. And in another 65 years, Ephraim, which is the Malchei Yisrael, will no longer be in power. Now, it doesn't actually... Ephraim means the Malchei Yisrael, because Yeram ben Avot came from Shevet Ephraim.
That doesn't mean that he was necessarily from Shevet Ephraim.
No. So, point being that the 65 years that he's prophesying doesn't actually mean from then, because when this prophecy is being said, it's only like maybe 20 years that Malchei Yisrael actually ceased to be. But it's going back to the Nevuah from Amos, which was said back then, which from then was 65 years. But the point is, he was telling them that there's nothing to be afraid of. They're burning out. And then he continued telling Achaz, very interesting story over here. Ask for a sign, ask for a miraculous sign from Hashem in order to prove that my prophecy is right. I missed it. Oh, you're right. Okay, I'm sorry. So he's describing over here that the Rosh Aram and Rosh Damesek is Ritzin, and you don't have to be worried because they're going to cease to be. And Rosh Ephraim Shonim and Rosh Shemim ben Remayo, and he says, Im lo saminu. If you're not going to believe that this sign is going to come true, you know why that's going to be? Ki lo yisei amenu. Because you don't believe. What he's really saying over here is that the reason why people don't believe is because they don't want to believe. I mean, somebody who wants to believe, it's like what the seeker seeks, the mind proves. That means whenever we want to see something, you go around and you see it. If somebody's like tuned into Ashgacha Piratas, wherever he's going to go during his day, he's going to tune in and connect the dots and say, wow, you know what happened? Because he's tuned in his mind, he wants to see it. Or what the thinker thinks the prover proves. And if you speak to somebody and he's like a Trump guy, and you say, hey, this, that, your mind connects the dots to see the picture that you're pre-programmed that you want to see. You meet a liberal guy, he reconfigures the whole story to see it his way. So that's im lo yisei aminu is ki lo yisei amenu. If you don't believe, it's because you don't want to believe, so you end up finding all different possible algorithms and interpretations to create for yourself a story which justifies your belief system. And then he continues, once he says that, he says, I have for you a challenge. You ask for a sign, and I'll give you a choice. You can ask for a sign, which by the way is where the Netziv Sefer, it's like a play in the word, the Shaila. Like Sha'ala means Sha'al Tachtas, means hell, or the depth of the earth. It also means the Shaila. Hamek Shaila means the depth of a question. It means deep down under. So it says, ask for a sign. Either ask for a sign from Hamek Shaila, from deep down below, or Hagbei L'mayla, or ask for something from way above. Ask something unpredictable, something which is like impossible to happen. So Achaz says, Lo yeshal. No. And this just proves the point. Achaz says, Lo yeshal v'lo yanas es Hashem. I'm not going to ask, and I'm not going to test the Lord. So it seems to be like he's very benevolent, he's very kind, he's like a righteous king. He says, no, me. But in reality, when you learn the whole context of Achaz, he was mamish, he had the grandfather Uziyahu was a tzaddik, he had Yosam, which was the greatest tzaddik for 16 years. Achaz was the most wicked of all the kings, he was even worse than the Malch Israel. He was so wicked that when he was given the choice to prove God's existence, he says, nah. Why? Because it's the same thing. Kim lo aminu, ki lo amenu. That means if you don't want to believe, God himself could come to you and say, Rabid, I'm ready to offer you an opportunity, test me and I'll prove myself to you. And he says, no, it's okay. Because I'm not interested in having to redo my entire internal subconscious infrastructure that I'm going to have to change I'd rather die and stay with my own old belief system than have to go through the pain of reprogramming myself. Vayomer Shimu no beis David Hama'at mikem halois hanoshim kisalu gam zalekoi. He said, is it not enough for you that you're weary of God as well? Which means, he says, wow, your mom is so down in like you've gone so far that you're not even interested to test me out, to figure out and experience me.
Same lotion that they said by Koira.
Right. Right. The same. Right. He said, like, are you so far down the rabbit hole that you won't even? Are you so fundamentalist atheist? Like you're such a frima apokoidus. You're like so frim that you're not even open-minded enough to be able to have an objective sign, to be able to challenge yourself. Are you so stuck? Lochen yitein Hashemu lachem ois. Oh, this is a very, very famous pusik. This dreht sich die ganze Welt. Lochen yiten Hashemu lachem ois. Therefore, God is going to give you a sign. He tells Achaz, Hine ha'alma hara. The young woman is going to give birth, v'yeledas bein, and she's going to have a son, v'kerasa shmoi Immanuel, and she's going to have a son who's going to be called Emmanuel. So the Christians over here get all excited. This is like one of the most exciting Christian verses where they all get pumped up, and they like take this that this was the sign of the virgin birth of this is where Yashka menatoyim menai and Shimu no beis David Hama'at mikem. I'm sorry. Which means Immanuel. The problem is that mamish doesn't even take off because the word, and all the Mefarshim are busy with it, like, I don't know, it like makes no sense. The word for a virgin is a besula. That's the word. And Alma, they translate it as a virgin, but Alma is used all the time for a young girl. Even though we learned it in Basia last week by Basia, it was also, she's called the Alma. Alma means a young girl, and there's even psukim and mishlei which talk about the Alma in the context of a married woman who's a bu'ula. So, such can enter confuse. I just found one of the psukim over here.
A married woman
It could be either. It could be a young married woman. And that's was. Let me just find it 1 second. Now let me just.
You were saying that a young woman is a basura.
No,
Saying that
here the Radak Taka.
she could be like a young married woman, and she's still called
Alma Hara. Ha'alma ene besula, right? The Radak says Ha'alma ene besula kedivri atoyim. Alma k'moy naira tia besula oy beula v'ne derech gever ba'alma hi beula. V'chein zacher kotten b'shonim nikra elem k'moy ben mi zeh olam b'zoy soyse ketana b'shonim v'fikach nikras Alma. V'alma zoyse hi eishes hanovi. Who's this Alma? This is the wife of the Novi. Eishes Achaz v'hu anochon. Kiem oise eishes hanovi hoy oimer haneviyah. Bottom line is he's telling that his wife is going to have a child. So Achaz, his wife, is going to have a son, and what's going to be the sign? That his wife is, without his permission, going to give him a name, Immanuel, that God is with us, which is going to be obviously not very cool for Achaz to have his wife give a name Immanuel, and he's like the anti-Immanuel movement, and he's gonna have a son being called Immanuel. Anyway, that's Pashat Pshat in the pasuk, and it's mamash gewalt. I just saw an interesting thing. I'm just getting lost here on a tangent that the Christians never teach, even in the Christian theology. This is something I saw from the Stovia Singer, even in the Christian theology seminaries, they never teach original Hebrew. They teach Latin, and they teach, even in the early Christian heads of the church, there was only like two of who actually knew original Hebrew. And the reason why they'll teach anything but not the original Hebrew is because once you go into the original Hebrew, you can't get lost on a translation, because words have, once you go into a translation of a word, the essence, it goes across the board all through Nach. So you can't with them. When you want to translate into Latin or you translate into English, then you have a certain leeway that you can translate it into context. And then based on that context, that becomes like quote unquote the new interpretation. Then you say, Shtaytich in Pusik, but you have to know original Hebrew to make the correlations. Anyway, this child who's going to be Immanuel, Chema Udvash Yochel, we are up to Perek Tezvav. Chema Udvash Yochel, he's going to eat butter and honey. To teach him to stay away from the bad and choose from the good, which means he's going to be eating chema dvash when in a very early age, because before the child is going to be able to eat from the goodness of the land, and he's going to be able to be the land is going to be abandoned from the two kings, which means that it's very short-lived, this whole fear, this whole threat. That means by the time this kid is going to know the difference between Toiv and Ra, they're gone already. So it's a karta masa. Yavi Hashem alecha val amcha val beis avicha yomim asher loy bou. The Eivishter Hashem is going to bring upon you and the people yomim asher loy bou limiyoyim sur Ephraim al Yehuda is asher ashur. From the days from when Ephraim have seceded from Assyria. And it's going to be on that day, Yisroik Hashem Lazvuv. It's going to be on that day that Hashem is going to call for the fly. He's going to like whistle for the fly, which is going to be the edge of the rivers of Mitzrayim. And for the bee that's in the land of Assyria, bottom line is they're all going to be summoned. That means the Egyptians and the Assyrians are going to be summoned to yeah, now he goes back and forth. First he said that the because this thread is going to be. But also Shemainen, don't think that because you're doing whatever you want and you're going to, that means that you're good. I'm trying to give you an opportunity to come back through this, but if you're not going to get the message, let me continue on what the result is going to be. They will come and they're going to fill up every single crack. In like in desolate like crevices, hasloim, and cracks in the stones and the rocks, and all of the thorns and all of the wild bushes. They're going to fill up the entire place. That means, as amazing as it was that they were never able to get in here, eventually they're going to come in and they're going to surround and take over the entire place. The Assyrians are coming in.
Take over Malchi
Yehuda. But now he goes, they're coming in to take over. Now let me tell you what's going to happen. Now he goes back to the other side. He's going to shave them off with a rented razor. Now a rented razor was, once upon a time, razors was a very, first of all, anything iron was a big deal. But a razor to shave had to be extremely sharp. So a regular person who had a razor, it usually used to get dull, and he didn't have the method to have a super razor sharp edge to be able to shave smooth. If you wanted to get a smooth shave, you used to go and you used to get a star aschira, a rented razor. So you used to go to a barber to rent a razor, and that's when you used to give somebody a 000 haircut. For chippah, you used a rented one. So. Now, if you look in the archaeology of the Assyrians, and you look at the picture of Sancheiriv and all these things, their beards. You ever saw the statues? You go into the Met Museum. They have like long, majestic beards, like Rosh Rebbe's beards coming down. No, fakir. No, they have here, and part of their pride was of the Assyrians was to have this huge Rebbe's beard. So here the Navi is going fakir that Hashem's going to go and He's going to shave them with a rented razor from Oivim Besfi. The biggest humiliation when they wanted to humiliate somebody. Had man genommen a rented razor, man hat overgut von Kopf bis Fies. Jede Mucken, wie sie do, and any type of hair, including your pubic hair, everything they shaved off from top to bottom. Man hat gesagt heimgeschickt, and then there was, bis gewesen also wie a Frau oder so wie a Kind, and it was like the biggest humiliation that they emasculated you. So that's what the Navi's, by Yeshayahu, and that day, Yigalach, it's gone. Then he's saying they're going to come.
It's gonna happen, but here's how it's gonna be.
And here's how it's going to come down. He's going to take a rented razor, which is kept extremely sharp. Be'evrei nor, be'melech Ashur, es harosh, v'sar raglayim. So from his head until his pubic hair, v'gam es azok on tisman, his beard too. So that's how they're going to be humiliated and they're going to be sent home. Now, whether it means literally or not, but it means at least metaphorically or figuratively that they're going to be sent home humiliated. Everything here is metaphors, and you always have to go back and forth between the V'hoyer b'yoymahu, and it's going to be on that day. Yechaya ish eglas bakar ushteitzon. So the Mepharshim say that this seems to be going on to the next kufa after Achaz, when by Chizkiyahu. By Chizkiyahu, that's when you had this period that even though there was battles and even though it was a poor time and people only had eglas basar shteitzon, they had one calf and two sheep, which was it was a down on the economy, it was a low economy. It's going to be this from the abundance of milk that's going to be from that production. You'll be able to make butter. Even though butter takes a large quantity of milk, and even though you're only having a little milk, the milk is going to be that fatty that you'll be able to have chemo. Ki chemo udvash yochel, because they'll be able to eat milk and honey. This is called the land of milk and honey throughout Nacht. This is like always the phrases where it comes from. Ki chemo udvash yochel, kol hanoiser b'kerev haaretz. Anything that's going to be remaining in the kerev haaretz. So whoever's going to be left, the remnants, because this was at Kufa when Chizkiyahu brought the entire nation back to Tshuva. So even though it was a low economy, but the bracha was chal in it, and they were able to have the benefits. V'hoyer b'yoymahu. Wer sagt? Yeah. Yechaya ish. In that time period. In the times of Chizkiyahu. The next one after. This is after Achaz. He's giving. After Achaz, you have Uziyahu, Yosam, and you have Achaz, and then you have Chizkiyahu. So, it's going to be on that. It's going to be on that day that every place where there was 1,000 vines, which is worth 1,000 silver pieces. Now he's going back to the other extreme. It's going to be put into thorn and thistle. It's going to be desolate. With arrows and with bows, they're going to come there, and the entire land is going to become desolate. And all the hills, that was hoed with a hoe, it's not going to come there. The fear of having the shomer, which we said these were these worms that used to destroy entire fields. So, it's going to become a pasture for oxen and for ranger sheep. So bottom line is, it seems to be going back and forth the nevuah. The nekuda that we saw over here was that Hashem offers opportunities of how we can be discovered. But you have to be ready to change and go through the experience of changing who you are in order to have it revealed. And if you insist on staying the way you are, signs will anyway be given, but you will succeed in not being able to see it. Yeah. If you're not going to want to believe, it's because you don't want to believe.